So I don't know if all the members have all these, because I think they may have handed them over.
I think you're right.
The House Committee on Labor will come to order. Clerk, will you take the roll, please?
Chair Hadsma. Here. Representatives Menser.
Here.
Colzar.
Here.
O'Neill.
Present.
Andrews.
Here.
Churches.
Present.
Wagella. Wozniak.
Here.
Mueller. Kuntz.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt the minutes from the March 2, 2023 meeting?
So moved.
All right. Moved by Representative Churches. Any objection? Without objection, the minutes are adopted. This morning, we're going to hear testimony from a couple different representatives, and then many of you, too, will be testifying. We have a lot of cards. What I want to do to get as many of you heard is to limit testimony time to 3 minutes. Cynthia Paul, to my left, will be taking note of that, and then we're going to limit the questions from representatives to each witness to 2 members, and our select members who can participate will make this as reasonably equal as we can, so we can get as many voices heard this morning as possible. So first we're going to hear testimony from Representative Weiss on House Bills 4004 and 4005. And following that, Representative Carter, Brenda Carter, will speak to House Bill 4007. Representative Weiss.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of the members of the Labor Committee for the opportunity to testify this morning on House Bills 4004 and 4005. I want to start, before we get into talking about what these bills do, I want to start with a little bit of history. In the early morning hours of December 11, 2012, over 10,000 workers poured into Lansing in and around the Capitol, standing in solidarity against passage of the so-called right-to-work bills. This anti-worker legislation was a direct attack on organized labor, making it incredibly difficult for unions to have the necessary resources to provide adequate representation to their members. Despite the massive public outcry and demonstration against this anti-worker legislation, the Republican majority at the time passed it on a party line vote, and it was signed into law later that day by then Governor Rick Snyder. Some of the people in this room today, I'm sure, were present on that day 10 years ago. It's been just over 10 years since that bill passed. During that time, unionization rates in Michigan have steadily declined. Michigan, considered the birthplace of the modern American organized labor movement, dropped from being the 5th state with the most union representation in 2012 to the 12th state in 2021. And along with that decline in unionization, there has also been a decline in benefits, pay, and workplace protections and safety. We know that workers in states with full collective bargaining rights make on average $1,500 more than workers in states with restrictions on those rights. We know that workers with full collective bargaining freedom have better benefits, and we know that they have fewer incidents of workplace injury and death. Michigan for years led the nation in having some of the best middle-class jobs due to strong collective bargaining protections. It is long past time that we get back to our roots. The purpose of these bills before you today is simple. It's simply to finally undo that decade-long wrong and to restore Michigan's promise to working people and working families. House Bill 4004 and 4005 restore workers' rights and freedoms to organize and collectively bargain for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. Back in November, voters sent a clear message when they elected a pro-worker and pro-working families majority. My colleagues and I have pledged to deliver on our promise to restore workers' freedoms. A yes vote on these bills delivers on that promise. I don't want to take up too much more time, Mr. Chair, because I know that we have many people here who want to testify on these bills, but I am available to answer questions. Thank you.
Questions from members? Representative Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative. I would like to start off by saying it is a travesty. We're going to limit testimony to 3 minutes and questions to 2 minutes. This is not a subject that should be jammed through. It is a major issue, and we should give it time. We should give it its due process that it's deserved. So I want to go on record as saying that is a mistake that is being made. Representative, what has changed in 10 years when this was voted down 60-40? The people have clearly spoken. They don't want right to work. Why are you trying to take away a person's right to choose?
I disagree that the people have clearly spoken.
This was on a ballot amendment in 2011, and it was voted down 60-40. Give me some rope on that. 57-43.
I disagree that the people have spoken on this. This is something that, when it was passed in 2012, and it has been in place now for 10 years, when we have talked to people out in Michigan, we have talked to people and we have explained what this legislation does and the consequences of this legislation, overwhelmingly we hear support for repealing this legislation.
Are you unfamiliar with the ballot initiative in 2011?
I'm not here to talk about the ballot initiative in
Right.
2011.
When the people voted on right to work, it was voted down almost 2-1.
I'm not here to talk about what happened.
If I were you, I wouldn't want to talk about it either.
I'm here to talk about this bill today and what Michigan people are saying today.
I'd like to talk about what the
this
people want.
legislation.
I'd like to talk about what the people want. They've clearly spoken.
I do too. And when we talk to people today across the state of Michigan, and when we explain what this legislation has done to working people and working families and removing some of those freedoms that are essential, overwhelmingly the support is to repeal this law.
That is incorrect. Do you have any poll numbers on that?
We do have poll numbers on
Please
that.
share them.
So I can get you more specific numbers across Michigan, but I can tell you that over 70% of people, according to Gallup poll, support unionization in the United States.
The question is right to work, not unionization.
Yeah. So again, I can get you specific
Well,
numbers, but we do have specific.
That's a
poll
little bit of
numbers.
hand waving right there. I mean, that's not, it's convenient that you don't have the numbers available, and it's convenient that you're not answering the question.
Again, I can get you specific numbers on that.
Do you
but
have
I can
them
tell,
now? We have 2 minutes to talk about this.
Yeah, I can get you specific numbers on that and provide that with you.
Representative Coons, I apologize, but we
Thank you,
need
Chair.
to get on to one more questioner. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we're all familiar with some of the recent polling that's come out that shows right to work being unpopular in Michigan, with almost 60% of people saying that they would prefer to see these bills repealed. I was wondering if you could maybe speak to a minute to just sort of explain to those that might not be familiar with how the free riding works with the current right to work law, and the fact that even if we repeal right to work, that there's still not necessarily a requirement to pay union dues, just to pay for the services provided.
That is correct. So currently in Michigan, if you are represented under a union, the union is required to provide, to collectively bargain on your behalf in order to try to get as best benefits, as best pay as possible, as best workplace, the best ideal workplace conditions as possible on your behalf. Unfortunately, because we are a so-called right-to-work state right now, many people, unfortunately, have stopped paying the dues that are necessary in order to be able to fund that process. That has weakened the ability of labor unions across Michigan to be able to effectively bargain on the behalf of their workers. All this does is state that if you are represented by a union, then the dues that you pay have to go towards that negotiation process on your behalf in order to ensure that you are getting the best pay possible, the best benefits possible, ensure that you're getting the best workplace safety standards possible. We know, again, that in states across the United States that have limited collective bargaining rights, that has led to a decline in pay, a decline in benefits, and a decline in safety standard, and an increase in workplace deaths even in states that have passed legislation such as what we have passed in Michigan in 2012. This is simply restoring those rights to workers to make sure that they have the resources necessary to be able to advocate for themselves, between themselves and their employers.
Thank you, Representative. I think it's important that everybody recognize that this is a matter of freeloaders in the system being allowed to take advantage of bargained for benefits without paying their fair share. And I think we can all agree that fundamental fairness in bargaining is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Andrews, and thank you, Representative Weiss. Representative Brenda Carter, would you come forward and speak about House Bill 4007?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for inviting me to speak. I'm here to support House Bill 4007. I am proud to testify on legislation to reinstate one of the best ways we have to lower the cost of repairs for taxpayers and make sure the job is done right. It's time to restore Michigan prevailing wage laws. In fact, it is long overdue. Do you know that there is a severe shortage in building and construction trades, and by restoring prevailing wage, we reverse the demoralizing effect on our skilled workforce? This repeal demoralized everyone who works with their hands. I know. I am a journeyman machine repair machinist, and I worked with my hands. I know the strong sense of pride we feel as skilled tradespeople when the job is done safely in our schools, on our roads, and in our public buildings. We feel enormous pride. I know this because when I did a job right, it made me feel great. I didn't learn this overnight. It took me 5 years through an apprenticeship program to learn how to do the job right. Studies have shown we can save taxpayers money by paying wages that ensure the job is done right. According to the Federal Highway Administration, the places where construction workers are paid higher wages are the places where the roads are constructed at a lower cost per mile. I bet you didn't know that. The bottom line is, Michigan workers deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, and it starts by ensuring they have a fair wage. We must ensure our hardworking residents receive wages in line with the values of their skills and services. We must offer competitive wages in order to attract and retain a highly trained workforce. The evidence is clear. Publicly funded construction projects paying prevailing wage are more likely to come in on time and, most importantly, under budget. With this bill, I aim to ensure that Michigan workers are treated with dignity and respect by ensuring a fair wage. We must ensure our hardworking residents receive wages in line with the values of their skills and service. Competitive wages are necessary for Michigan to attract and retain a highly trained workforce. We do not want to see critical infrastructure projects built by contractors who want to cut costs. This legislation is good for workers, it's good for our communities, and it's good for Michigan. In short, restoring prevailing wage is a win-win. It's a win for Michigan workers who deserve a fair wage for their skilled work. It's a win for Michigan's economy with more money flowing into the local businesses. And it's a win for Michigan taxpayers who will receive a better return on their investment in our roads and infrastructures. I thank you for this opportunity to share how important it is to have somebody that know what they're doing do the job. And that's all we're asking. Compensate our skilled workforce for the work they have been properly trained to do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee. And now I'll take questions.
You're welcome. Thank you, Representative Carter. Questions from members of Representative Carter. Representative Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Representative Carter. Do you expect this committee to believe that paying higher wages lowers the price of a project? That's what you just said.
Absolutely.
That is, how could that possibly be true?
It's true.
I understand. And we, again, by our limited, I noticed that you were not limited to 3 minutes, but I noticed that we have to jam this testimony in, but we haven't provided any data on this. You have no information. I can quote things out of the air also, but do you have any type of information saying that paying more means we're paying less?
I did cite in my testimony that we have research. I will make sure that it will personally get to your office before the end of the day.
That was on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration on where roads were constructed, is the quote that you used.
Absolutely.
And that varies greatly with weather. That is not a prevailing wage question, that is a weather question.
The question stating is make sure that our workers are treated with dignity and respect in line with the skills that they have obtained to do the job.
Of course. Was dignity and respect on the bill, or is this a prevailing wage bill?
It's a prevailing wage bill. Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much.
Thank you, Representative Coons. Other members? Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your testimony, Rep. So far, we haven't gotten any real data from either witness, but I'd like to add some data, and if you can dispute it or change it or whatever you want to do. But I know that several times in caucus and session, I've heard that your representation represents the will of the people, and I have to defer and say, no, that's not true right now, because every study I've seen does not favor repealing this law. Let me ask you.
Restoring, sir.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead. I should allow you to respond.
No, sir, I was just saying the data shows that it does support restoring prevailing wage. Thank you, sir.
Okay, so, and to Mr. Representative Kuntz's question, it's illogical to think that you're going to have less cost in a project when you're raising the wages. And when all the data that I've seen, and I've got the hard data, that's not true. Can you comment on that?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that by reducing accidents, by reducing jobs that's done on the fly, and making sure that the job is done correctly, you absolutely reduce the long run cost. And Representative Wozniak, just like I said to Representative Kuntz, before the end of the day, I'll have that data to you. Thank you, sir.
If you can get it to me, I'd appreciate it.
You know I will.
I know you will. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Carter. Thank you, Representative Wozniak. And thank you, Representative Kuntz. I didn't intend to not thank you before, but I was thinking the most recent questioner. So, thank you both for coming here. We're going to take testimony from the many who have submitted cards. We're first hear testimony from Ryan Seabolt, who's the Director of Governmental Affairs at Michigan AFL-CIO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you said, I'm Ryan Seabolt, Director of Government Affairs at Michigan AFL-CIO, and I'd like to thank the members of the committee for holding this important hearing on these bills today. Just to address, it wasn't in my prepared remarks, but I just want to address maybe the problem of term limits, that not everybody understands the history of how both the laws that are currently in place came to be, but there were no hearings when so-called right to work was put into place. And matter of fact, Senate Majority Leader Arlen Meekhoff, Republican Arlen Meekhoff, said this issue had been out there for decades and we didn't need to hold hearings on it. They were just going to vote. So the committee, the testimony that we have heard today is already more than was heard 10 years ago on this issue. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the history of how these bills, the current law, came to be. The bills before committee today are critical to securing the safety for all working people in their workplaces. These bills are critical to expanding the rights of workers and their freedom in the workplace, and these bills are critical to building a great economy and raising wages for all of Michigan's working families. And I think the fact that working people showed up from across the state today to fill up 4 committee rooms to show their support for how important this is to them really speaks to that. We're talking about people who punch the clock every day and earn an hourly wage, took their time to be here today to say how critical this is to their livelihoods and their family and their safety. Put it simply, these bills expand the rights of working people in the state of Michigan. For decades, working people in the state have been under attack. Bill after bill has been passed to chip away at their rights and weaken their ability to collectively bargain, to improve their quality of living, and have their fair shot and a chance at a decent life. The current law on the books serves only to harm the ability of working people to improve their wages and make their working conditions safer. The current laws in Michigan should be a source of shame. The Illinois Economic Policy Institute and the Project for Middle Class Renewal at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign compared the differences in outcomes between states that have anti-worker laws, like the one in Michigan currently, and states that protect the expanded rights and freedoms of their workers. Workers have greater financial security in states where their freedom to collectively bargain is respected than in states like Michigan that suppress the rights of working families. In 2018, workers in Michigan and states with similar anti-workers laws earned 13% lower wages than their counterparts in states who supported worker freedom. Michigan workers and their families are losing out because our current laws undermine their ability to negotiate for better pay and better benefits. Statistically speaking, Michigan and states with anti-worker laws like the one currently in place have fewer apprenticeships, and it should be no surprise that the lack of training also leads to more workplace injuries. Free collective bargaining states have superior training and safety outcomes. Michigan and similar states with anti-worker laws have 31% fewer registered apprenticeships per 100,000 workers and have 50% more on-the-job related fatalities per 100,000 workers. In a study published in January of this year by called The Economic Impact of Prevailing Wage Laws, Repeals, and Construction Market Outcomes, evidence from the repeals between 2015 and 2018 had some startling findings.
Mr. Seabolt, I was waiting for your sentence to conclude, but we're just past 3 minutes, so I apologize. We're trying to make sure everyone gets an opportunity to speak. Members? Yes, Representative Churches.
Thank you. I just have a couple questions. So since 2011, have the needs of workers changed?
I think the global pandemic highlighted very much so how the needs of workers are different, or maybe you never even realized before the pandemic started.
So to the legislation that was previously passed for right to work, do you think that sufficiently provided to the needs of workers in our state?
The current law does not sufficiently provide the needs of workers in our states. We know that workers need strong workplace protection. They need their collective voice to keep them safe in the workplace, and the pandemic highlighted how critical safety is in the workplace.
Thank you.
Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I represent a border county, so prevailing wage is an issue that comes up for us frequently. Could you speak to for a moment as to how prevailing wage in our state can help us, keep money in our communities and compete against some of our southern neighbors who feel differently about protections for workers?
Well, absolutely, and I just want to point out, Indiana, when they passed or repealed their prevailing wage law, they actually, one of their Republican leaders admitted that it didn't save the state a single cent. Prevailing wage makes sure that workers are not being brought in from other states and other places at lower wage rates. They protect the wage that our workers here in Michigan make and make sure that everybody is paid that rate so that we aren't bringing in cheaper workers from other places to undercut Michigan citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Seabolt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The next witness is Jessica Smith. Ms. Smith is a United Food and Commercial Workers member, and she's a meat cutter at a Kroger. Welcome, Ms. Smith.
And Vice Chair's announcement.
Your microphone's not on.
Oh, it's
Push the button.
There we go. All right. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. My name is Jessica Smith, and I live in China Township. In December 2012, when Michigan passed anti-worker laws, it made me feel like my state thought I was less important than the employer's bottom line. To me, it said they didn't care if I made less or if I was unsafe at work. Now we have a historic opportunity in front of us today. It's time for us to do the right thing, right or wrong, and restore the rights that were taken from Michigan workers 10 years ago. I urge you to support passing House Bill 4005 to restore workers' rights and freedom. I'm a proud member of the United Food and Commercial Workers and a meat department manager for Kroger. I have worked in the Kroger meat department in various stores for 23 years, becoming a department manager back in 2003. At that time, I was one of a handful of women in that role. I distinctly remember attending my first quarterly meeting with other meat department managers in the state. In a room of over 100 people, I was one of 3 women. These meetings look a lot different today, and many more women in my role. I know this has been made possible because of the progress won by years of fights my fellow union members and I have been part of. It is also because of my union contract that I make the same amount as my male coworkers. I'm sure that many of the women sitting on committee today know how hard it can be to work in a male-dominated field. I'm a single mother with a daughter that I am putting through private school. This is the only possible due to the work my union brothers and sisters collectively bargained in our contract. It helps working moms and all workers take home a fair and livable wage. The current labor laws in Michigan not only limit workers' ability to negotiate an equitable wage, they also make us less safe. Working for over 23 years in a meat department, I have learned a thing or two about safety. Through our union contract, we have established high safety standards so that I make it home safe and sound every day. When issues arise at work, I can feel confident in speaking out with my union representation behind me. Workers deserve to come home safe to their families every night, and they deserve a voice so they can speak out when they see something is unsafe. Even before becoming a member of Local 876, I was raised in a working class family, and I saw what a union contract meant to them. My grandfather is a 70-year member of Pipefitters Local 636, and my father is a member of Plumbers Local 98. They taught me from an early age what it means to stand in solidarity with your union brothers and sisters to fight for a better job and a better life.
Ms. Smith, I apologize. We're going to have to call it right there. Thank you. Do we have questions? Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the 4th witness already, and they're all opinions. Facts. I need facts. If you're going to testify, give me facts. But I'll give you one fact. 28 states have right to work. Why is that? I'm asking for your opinion on this now.
Well, because laws are passed by politicians, and many times politicians get to hear from the highest bidder, and the highest bidder gets the loudest voice many times. What these laws do is make sure that the people who don't have the money don't get to be heard. They get less of a voice. And that's my opinion and my experience.
That's your opinion. Thank you. That's what I asked for.
Thank you, Representative Wozniak. Representative Churches.
Thank you. How has this legislation of right to work negatively impacted you as a worker?
It has negatively impacted me because when you're in a workplace and you have most of the people in the union, and then there's a few people who decide, well, and this is the way they word it, not me, I don't have to pay. You guys are paying for it. I can get it for free. It causes a divide. It causes workplace, anger, all kinds of negative feelings that don't need to be there. We need to stick together so we can get what's best for everyone.
Do you think that this legislation has led to the creation of the lack of investment in workers, has led to the creation of a cultural divide between administration and workers?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Thank you. Next witness we're here from is Jonas Peterson. He's with Southwest Michigan First. Is he in the room? So next witness we're here, if he is in the room, is Philip Taylor from the Michigan Right to Work Committee. Is this Jonas? Yes. Okay. Go ahead. Come right up, Jonas. I don't know if you heard, we're, because of time constraints, limiting testimony to 3 minutes and then questions from 2 different members. So yes, go at it.
Good morning, Chair Hodsma, members of the committee. Thank you for the chance to testify this morning. My name is Jonas Peterson. I'm the CEO of Southwest Michigan First. We are a regional community and economic development organization with services available in 7 counties throughout Southwest Michigan. Here today to oppose the repeal of right to work. Here's what I want you to know. Southwest Michigan First, in addition to being a regional economic development organization, we operate a subsidiary organization called Consultant Connect. Consultant Connect is one of the largest networks of site selection professionals in North America, corporate site selection leaders. Through Consultant Connect, we've hosted hundreds of conferences all around the country in markets like Atlanta, Chicago, New York, LA, Houston, Columbus, with leading site selectors. Through that experience, we've gained insight into their priorities and their processes for locating job creation projects. Here's what those site selectors tell us. Right to work makes states more competitive. They also tell us that for some job creation projects, states that do not have right to work are simply not considered. We're not even in the game. I want to be clear. Our organization is not against unions. In fact, we partner with unions really well. We're for choice. We believe choice is foundational to our democracy. We believe choice leads to better outcomes, and workers should have a choice about where they spend their hard-earned income. We all want a more prosperous future for Michiganders. In order to make that prosperous future a reality, we need to be in the game for more job creation projects, not less. We should be providing choice for workers about where to spend their hard-earned income, especially in this environment of rising prices, not taking that choice away. And we should be looking for strategies to make Michigan more competitive, not less. I want to leave you with one data point because I know this committee is looking for those stats, and one of those that we hear from site selectors quite often is a recent study from Harvard. It's from 2021, and the key data point is that they found manufacturing employment was 28% higher in right-to-work states than non-right-to-work states that they border.
Thank you,
Just one
Mr.
example.
Peterson. We'll have to stop you right there after the sentence ended. Members, questions? Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that you're talking about site selectors here, but I feel like you're maybe not fully laying out the full picture of what makes site selection a process that site selectors often cite things like roads, broadband internet, housing, major infrastructure needs, all the things that we in Michigan are currently lacking in, aside from simply whether or not a state is right to work. I would also like to point out that we just recently had multiple unionized companies, Ford, site battery plants and other major facilities in our state, and those are union companies, and they don't seem to have a problem with unionized workforce. Also, would like you to, I guess, explain why we'd be interested in site selectors who want to pay substandard wages and living conditions to their workers locating to our state. If anything, getting rid of right to work weeds out the type of employers that we would rather not have in favor of employers who put their workers and working conditions first.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I'll say a couple things. One, the corporate site selectors, so they represent a variety of companies. And they, in turn, if we are competitive, give us options. And so we, as leaders, would have the choice to pick which of those companies we pursue or compete for, or those that are not a good fit in our market. The corporate site selectors are simply an intermediary in that decision. And then I'll also recognize that the site selection process is very complex. We're contending that right to work is part of that process, and that's what site selectors tell us, but it definitely includes other variables, to your first point, roads, infrastructure, workforce quality, the list goes on.
So in essence, whether or not a state is right to work is not the single factor to these people. There are many other factors that play a part aside from just whether a state is right to work.
I would state that right to work is a big factor in the corporate site selection process.
But not the
because
factor.
That's what we hear from site selectors.
But not the factor.
A big factor.
Thank you, Representative Andrews. Representative Kuntz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you tell us why right-to-work states are adding more jobs with more people, where agency fee states are losing jobs and losing people?
I appreciate that question. I would think you would have to ask those states directly. But again, my point is relaying what we hear from corporate site selectors, that right to work is a competitive advantage, that right to work puts you in the game for more of those high value, high job creation projects where you do get considered for those along the way.
So currently, I'm just a really quick follow-up. Ford was brought up with $1 billion of corporate welfare, and they came here and were a right-to-work state. Is that, so obviously being right-to-work does not limit union companies from coming here.
Does not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson, and thank you, Representative Kuntz and Representative Andrews. Next witness we're here is Jeanette Bradshaw. Jeanette is from International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 58. Is she in the room? Okay, we'll get to her if she's in the overflow. Lee Graham from IUOE 324.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I wish to speak on both bills today. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Lee Graham. I am here as Labor Management Director for the Operating Engineers 324. We operate, repair heavy equipment that builds Michigan from the ground up. In my more than 30-year career in the skilled trades, I've been an apprentice, a journeyman, an instructor, a training director, and now a spokesperson for labor management. Careers in the skilled trades like mine are earned. We train years in self-funded apprenticeship programs. These are apprenticeship programs that are debt-free and offered paid. On-the-job training, that means that our training goes hand in hand with our jobs. This is what workforce development is. Pairing individuals with the opportunities to build a career. Labor and management partnering to create careers through training. Everyone in this room can agree these careers are vital. These are necessary, they are needed now more than ever. Revitalize the infrastructure of this state today and well into the future. They represent one of the most important things our state needs, a skilled, well-trained workforce capable of getting and keeping Michigan running. When the state repealed prevailing wage, it undermined the very training and safety elected officials said they valued. By lowering the standards and wages in construction, the message was clear. Michigan workers and Michigan businesses aren't worth it. And repealing prevailing wage told the next generation workforce development isn't important. And that's why repealing prevailing wage did. It said that we as a state have no interest in making sure our residents are paid fairly or have safe working conditions. Prevailing wages make sure that workers receive the right education and training to do their jobs safely and effectively. Ensure that these are compensated fairly. It makes sure that the next generation workforce opportunities, it provides the words we say as a state that these careers, worker safety, fair pay are important to us and not just talking points, but a guiding principle. This is how workforce development happens. When we contribute to opportunities together, this is also why we must work to defend collective bargaining and workers' rights. So-called right to work has never been about creating or helping the economy. It has always been about weakening workers' rights. These same rights that we use to train, to teach safety, to create the best trained, the best equipped workforce, both of these issues, the lack of prevailing wage and worker suppressing right to work law, have tried to chip away at our safety, our training, our wages, and our ability to sustain careers. We have stood tall. Our industry is one of that knows what it takes to work hard, create something that lasts, like a bridge, a skyscraper, or a career. But there's a limit to how much working people can be asked to burden. And in closing, these two mistakes, repealing prevailing wage and passing right to work, have damaged our present and our future potential as a state. Now is the time to make access to these careers and the opportunities they provide more, not less accessible.
Well, Mr.
Restoring prevailing wage to repealing right to work
I have
are
to
two of the
interrupt.
most.
You've done a great job of run-on sentences, but I got to interrupt. We're 20 seconds over.
Just wanted to be able to get the last part in. Thank you.
I appreciate your. Hopefully, you can get that when you get some questions. So, questions from members. Yes, Representative Wagella.
So there's been a lot of talk about choice in this room today, and I first just want to note that unions are democratic institutions with elections, constitutions, committees, and assemblies, and we've been talking about choice. And my question is, the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows that states that have stronger worker protections have, on average, $9,000 more a year in pay, and 37% less risk of dying on the job. So do you see these two pieces of legislation today as restoring the choice that people come to Michigan to work because it is a place that values workers?
Very much so, and that's what we were sharing earlier. Just by the opportunity to be able to have joint training apprenticeships with our employers across the state, the safety and education that's tied to that. When we recruit in schools, and I was going to say today, like in Frankenmuth from kindergarten through 5th grade, when you're recruiting at that young age and having that opportunity to show them the safety aspects of what we do in our industry, that is where we're most strongest. So absolutely, it is very important that we actually have the opportunity with these bills today. So thank you.
Representative Coons.
Thank you, sir. Again, thank you for coming today. You had mentioned safety, and I appreciate what you're trying to do here. That's a very emotional topic. Again, no data was shared. Let me tell you what MIOSHA has to say about safety since Right to Work has been introduced. Since this has been introduced, the number of workplace injuries in construction has decreased. So, I appreciate what you're trying to say, and safety is important to all of us. No one in this room is going to say that workers' safety is not important. You didn't provide any data, and you're factually incorrect in your statement.
Well, there's a lot of data that sits out there, and like you talked about the time
MIOSHA
frame.
data?
And the truth of the matter is, with MIOSHA, when you have strong strategic partnerships across these cities and communities where we're building projects with our employers and the professional trades, safety is the utmost importance. So
does MIOSHA have different standards? Does MIOSHA have different standards for union and non-union stops?
MIOSHA governs the whole state.
That is correct, and they do not have different standards. And it doesn't matter which partnership you have. We're all held to the same worker safety standard, and workplace injuries have decreased since the institution of Right to Work.
And that's your statement today?
All right.
And the truth of it is that you want to look at the data, and you want to look at the partnerships, and you want to look at the projects.
I'd really like to look at the
job
data.
sites
The
that
data
we
is what's important.
can do that.
That's the last word on this exchange because I think there were 4 questions in yours, Representative Coons, but I appreciate you doing that. I appreciate your testimony today, Mr. Graham. Ms. Bradshaw, who was earlier in another room, has arrived in this room. She is from IBW Local 58.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize. I had to use the restroom and did not hear because I was out there.
I understand.
So just give me just a second. Okay, so I am Jeanette Bradshaw, and actually today I'm representing the IBEW Michigan State Conference. So I'm not just speaking on behalf of my local union, I'm speaking on behalf of all the unions of all the IBEW locals in the state of Michigan. But I want to say thank you for having this hearing today. Now, I am here to speak about House Bill 4007 in support of restoring Michigan's prevailing wage law. Okay. I have been in the electrical industry for over 20 years as a proud licensed journeyman electrician. And Mr. Chair, as the legislature continues to do the great work of attracting and investing in new manufacturing jobs and development, investing in a skilled and well-trained workforce here in Michigan, it will be essential for making sure that these jobs are filled by the best qualified workers and that the jobs and the wages they bring in stay in our Michigan communities. Prevailing wage laws are clearly the best for construction industry, the best for taxpayers, and create more paths to restoring strong middle-class living workers. Prevailing wage ensures the competitive bidding process. By setting wage rates, the law allows local contractors to compete fairly and win bids based on merit, productivity, and efficiency. As we move more people into the building and construction industry, shouldn't we pay those workers for the training and expertise that they have, regardless of whether or not that they're represented by a union? The skills learned in the construction industry are just, or should be respected just as much as someone who's in a college path or has a college degree. We applaud Governor Whitmer, who took the first critical step to undo the wrong by the legislature by restoring prevailing wage for government project contracts bid by the State Department of Technology, Management, and Budget. And I appreciate the time to speak on behalf of our members to you today. And I tried to keep it under the 3 minutes.
You absolutely did very well in relation to that. Questions from members? Yes, Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering if you could talk for a minute about the apprenticeship programs that you guys run through the IBEW and the benefits that those have over non-union programs and the ways that this law will help going forward.
Well, I can speak on behalf of why for me personally as a woman, I am a very underrepresented part of the construction industry. I chose the IBEW. Our apprenticeship programs are self-funded. We don't come to the legislature asking for money to run our programs. They are self-funded from a contribution of our membership and our Contractors Association, which are all small businesses, to put into that facility. And we, as the membership, and then those apprentices will have 1 day in school every other week, and then the rest of the time they'll be on the job learning the craft. And it is very important. You just can't learn electrical work out of a book. You must do it to learn it.
Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ma'am, you stated a few things about the environment in Michigan. How's your business doing?
I actually don't own a business. I'm a member of my local union.
Right,
I'm a licensed journeyman electrician.
So how is the IBEW doing?
Our local union is doing very well right now.
Very well? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming back and participating, Ms. Bradshaw.
Thank you for allowing me to be tardy.
You're welcome. Next witness is Price Dobernick from UA Local 333. On deck is Jimmy Green from ABC. If he can be brought into the room, or get to him right away without delay after Mr. Dobernick speaks.
Okay. Good morning, and please bear with me. I've been tested for everything, but I'm fighting a cold. But I am safe to be here. So good morning, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to address the committee this morning. My name is Price Dobernick. I'm a proud 30-year member of the United Association, and I also serve as business manager of the United Association of Plumbers, Pipe Fitters, Welders, and HVAC Technicians based right here in Lansing. I also have the honor to serve as the president of the Michigan Pipe Trades Association. The Michigan Pipe Trades Association is made up of 11 different local unions covering the entire state of Michigan, and we represent all the members in the United Association to perform plumbing, pipe fitting, welding, HVAC technicians, as well as sprinkler fitters. So now that you have a little bit of background on myself, and hopefully it'll help you appreciate my perspective on House Bill 4007. As many of you know, prevailing wage was put in place in 1965. It was irresponsibly eliminated under the past administration. When it was in place, it worked. It assured schools, bridges, and other public work projects were built on time and on budget using a highly skilled workforce. Reinstating prevailing wage will help expand well-paid, safe jobs with quality work that will stand the test of time. Those hard-earned wages will be spent in the local communities where those projects are taking place, which will help our local businesses thrive. Without the stable, regulated environment that prevailing wage provides, the market is left in a race to the bottom, where hiring decisions are based on profits with little disregard for worker safety, quality assurances, in my opinion, worst of all, any disregard for the working men and women that make these projects all happen. All workers, union or not, should earn a wage every day that allows them to live with dignity, provide health care for them and their family, like most of us enjoy in this room, and earn a retirement that allows them to retire with dignity while they still have their health. Prevailing wage through Bill 4007 does all of this. For those that try to make the broken case that paying a fair wage and benefit package will raise the cost of doing business, I would simply say that I have not seen a credible report that can make the case. The truth is that equipment cost and materials are the main source of a cost of any project. And with the well-known shortages and the supply chain issues we're facing today, that is the case now more than ever. In closing, I want to thank the committee for allowing me to speak this morning and hope that you all support House Bill 4007. And in doing so, you're supporting both represented and unrepresented workers and allowing them to make and earn the wage they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobernick. Representative Mueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you. It seems to be, I mean, I've been here about 4 years, right? And so we were in Republicans in majority, 57-54. Now the Democrats are 56, 54. And we've done a lot of economic development too. We're doing some bills for that. With this close of separation in the House, that tells you that people they want progress, right? So at the end of the day, if we're going to keep going down this road that we've done, like, oh, the Republicans took it away, now Democrats are in charge, we're going to take it all back, so we're going to reverse things, so all these other companies that are coming to Michigan, are they going to be right to work, or are they going to not be right to work? Are they going to be prevailing wage or not going to be prevailing wage? Why aren't we looking at something that, like, compromises? I mean, and at the end of the day, people want progress, they don't want partisanship. So if the city of Flint wants to use prevailing wage, let the city of Flint use prevailing wage. They have their own city government. They have the people that they elected them. They have their own city budget. They can figure that stuff out. Let's say Fenton Township, where I represent, and Fenton Township wants to use non-prevailing wage. They can be held accountable to their people that get elected too. So why don't we put this partisanship aside and just try to figure out a way that we can all get together for the benefit for the state instead of classifying things as non-union, union, Republican, Democrat, and just do what's best for the people. In the end, that's what it really is progress, not politics.
Okay, well, I don't know if that was a question or a statement, but I'll try to answer anyways. So I'm not interested in politics, zero, right? I'm probably not your normal business manager. Every day I can get away with it. I wear jeans and work boots to my office because I go out to job sites, I speak with represented workers, I speak with unrepresented workers. And there's nothing worse than talking to an unrepresented worker who doesn't have health insurance, or they have to pick which kid's not going to get coverage because they can't afford the withholding off of their check. So we're here to fight for our members and the unrepresented workers. So if you go to those job sites and you look at these young folks, they don't have any formal training programs, they don't have health insurance, they don't have a retirement, and if they do, it's little to nothing. And that's what drives me to get up and come do this type of stuff. It's not partisan for me. It's doing what's right for people who are trying to make a living.
Well, I did kind of sneak a question in there. If you remember me asking, what is your opinion on whether you think local control would be useful in this situation, and why have a statewide mandate? That was basically my question. In your opinion, what do you think about that?
All of the above.
Thank you. Representative Churches.
Thank you for being here. I greatly appreciate your advocacy for people who you think deserve and are worth more than the legislature has told us. How does this legislation help workers compete? How does it draw workers to Michigan? What potential does it have?
Well, I would kind of circle back to my previous comments because I do spend a lot of time talking to unrepresented workers. And prevailing wage does draw those folks, right? Because just because it's prevailing wage doesn't mean it's a union job. I can tell you those non-union folks fight to get on prevailing wage jobs because it gives them, they don't get rich, but they make a few extra bucks, so maybe they can take the family out to dinner on Saturday when they normally wouldn't have. Or maybe they make that camping trip in the summer that they wouldn't have. And so paying a fair wage and benefit package draws people from across the board. It does. I talk to non-union workers every single day, and I'm telling you it means something to them. And if you're an unrepresented worker and you want to make prevailing wage every single day, give me a call. I had to get that plug in there. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
It's quite all right. Thanks for coming in today, Mr. Dobrnik.
Thank you.
Next witness we have is Jimmy Green from ABC.
Thank you. Chairman Hadsma, thank you, first of all, for having this hearing. I think it's very important. I had a series of notes, and I passed them out to the clerk, so I'm not going to bore you with all the details that I wrote out. But it's interesting, I had these notes prepared, and then I heard all my friends on the other side of the aisle start talking about them, and I figured it was important to get back to some real basics in regards to prevailing wage. ABC Michigan obviously is in opposition to reinstating prevailing wage, House Bill 4007. And the reason for that is pretty simple. And I think it's interesting, and I've heard it from both sides of this committee. We don't, and I met Representative Carter out in the hallway, and I thanked her for her testimony because she's absolutely right. Skilled trades workers in the state demand and deserve respect, courtesy, good wages. There was nothing she said in her testimony that was untrue in regards to the skilled trades worker, especially the dignity part. I'm fortunate enough to represent 88%, and let me make that clear, 88% of the commercial contractor community. I talk to non-union workers all day, every day as well. I would also suggest that if in fact safety, quality, timeliness, if these truly were the bedmarks of prevailing wage, I wouldn't be representing 88% of the commercial contractor community. I'd be representing the 12%. This, as somebody brought up earlier, the state building code and MIOSHA, they have standards for non-union and union contractors. With 88% of the industry that I represent, I would imagine that if we vacated any of those core principles, we'd be on TV almost every single day. Safety is not, to me, something that should be politicized. It should not be a part of this committee. As a matter of fact, this is not, and this is where we get into propaganda, this is not a union versus non-union issue. It never has been, although people will make the case for it. I'm a free enterprise advocate. I'm probably more libertarian than I am anything, and I believe that if anybody can put food on their table ethically, they should be in a union or a non-union. This is not a right-to-work advocacy either, mind you. But I believe that the union contractor is one of the best contractors here in the state. But it doesn't erase the fact that it exercises, and when you bring back mandated prevailing wage, you take away a fundamental right of local communities. And local communities should govern tax dollars. As Representative Mueller suggested, these are economic issues, not union versus non-union issues, not skilled trades workers, not about respect, dignity, or anything of the sort. This really is about economic issues. Vacating prevailing wage and putting it back on the rolls simply removes any opportunity for cities, colleges, communities, counties, you name it. And I believe their first fiscal responsibility, mind you, is to their own taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Green. I've let you go another 9 seconds,
okay.
And we'll take questions. Representative Andrews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for being here today. I know it's been a tough couple of weeks for you, so appreciate you being in. The question I have is to the prevailing wage point.
Yeah.
As you're probably aware, representing a lot of contractors, not having prevailing wage in the state has done little to lower the cost of a job. What it's effectively done is lower the amount that workers are paid for those jobs while increasing the amount of profits that contractors take. We see in prevailing wage states across the country that the only real difference in the bidding process is how much workers end up getting paid, which prevents the race to the bottom that we've seen in non-prevailing wage and often right-to-work states as well. So I'm curious why it is that you feel it is better for contractors to make more and workers to make less when we could have a situation where we have the same high standards of job performance that union contractors provide, but also, and some non-union contractors provide, to your point, but also having our workers paid consummate to the work that they're doing and not having their wages be part of the contract bargaining.
Well, they actually are. You answered your own question. They are part of the bid process. And quite frankly, to your point, I haven't heard one bit of testimony from the other side that would suggest they're making less money. You look at the quality of build in this country, or this state in particular. Look at Detroit that uses predominantly prevailing wage, and look at Grand Rapids that does not. And I would suggest that if you went to any one of those cities, you would not be concerned about, one, the wages that that worker makes, and two, the quality of the build.
Representative Wozniak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Green.
Thank you.
Appreciate your expertise in this issue. Just if I could get a comment from you on some comments that my cohorts on this board have made. They're calling the current statute anti-worker. That's one question. And the other is the 150,000 good residents of Michigan that have decided to opt out of unions have been called freeloaders. I would like you to comment on that because I don't believe they're freeloaders.
Well, that's an interesting. I didn't plan to testify on that, but I'm actually in support of that. I don't believe there should be. I believe they should have a free rider off of our right to work. I don't believe anybody should benefit from collective bargaining agreements should they choose to leave the union. I've always been supportive of that, and I know that goes against the grain, but that's a personal and, quite frankly, I think a business decision. That if you want to leave the union, you should leave all the benefits with you.
Thank you, Representative Wozniak, Representative Andrews, and thank you, Mr. Green, for coming in this morning and testifying.
You called Philip Taylor. He's in the room, by the way, just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Yusuf Rabi from the Michigan Nurses Association, and I understand you have a couple members with you, Jeremy Lapham and Jessica Lannon. It's 3 minutes. You don't each get 3 minutes, so 3 minutes for the three of you.
And I will keep it very brief. Thank you, committee members. Yusuf Rabi with the Michigan Nurses Association, here to express support on behalf of our nearly 13,000 members statewide that are registered nurses and healthcare workers for House Bill 4004, 4005, and 4007. I'm going to let the two RNs that are with me here today give testimony about their personal experiences of how these repeal bills are going to impact their work. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thanks, Mr. Rabi.
Hi, I'm here today to strongly support 4004 and 4005. As a healthcare worker, I know the vital importance of workplace safety. This legislation is crucial to improving the safety and well-being of nurses and healthcare workers across the state. The current anti-worker laws have had a detrimental impact on the workforce, leading to lower wages, reduced benefits, and decreased worker safety. According to the Department of Bureau of Labor Statistics, right-to-work states have 3.2% less wages than non-right-to-work states. They also have lower employer-sponsored health insurance benefits and retirement benefits. The EPI found that so-called right-to-work laws have resulted in 37% higher risk in workplace fatalities for workers in those states as well. And this is a staggering statistic that underscores the importance of a strong workplace safety standards and the power of collective bargaining to protect workers. We've worked firsthand through COVID-19. We've seen our patients, colleagues, and families go through this, and we know the risks that healthcare workers face on the job are unacceptable. It's crucial to take action on these.
Good morning, I'm Jessica Lannon, and thank you for having us, and thank you for your service. For over 3 years now, healthcare workers have faced head-on the challenges of a deadly virus with less than adequate resources, in many cases resulting in harm to ourselves, our patients, and our families. Unfortunately, the anti-worker laws that we are hoping to repeal today have led to corporate interest groups, including in healthcare, actively fighting against the rights of workers for more than a decade. The resources these groups pour into the fight to take away our collective voice of the collective voice of workers could be better spent on providing resources to those who provide direct patient care. As nurses and healthcare workers, it is our job, our duty, and most importantly, our privilege to care for those in our community. But instead of giving us the resources needed to do so, the hospitals would rather fight to take our voice away, resulting in nurses and healthcare workers leaving the profession, adding to the staffing crisis we currently see. Don't be fooled. There isn't a shortage of nurses. There is a shortage of nurses in the state of Michigan unwilling to work in unsafe conditions. As union members, we strive to work collaboratively with our employers to find ways to provide safe working conditions. When we lose our voice, we lose the ability to speak up without retaliation, to bring forward the unsafe practices that are occurring in an attempt to make them safe again.
And Ms. Lannon, I'm going to have to
Thank you.
foreclose you right there. Members? Representative Wagella.
You got it. Thank you for your testimony. So, we live in a time with immense wealth inequality where 3 people have more wealth than the bottom 50% of Americans. And if you look at the statistics, as union membership has gone down, wealth inequality has only expanded. And when Right to Work was first passed, there was a specific carve-out for police and fire unions. And I've thought about this a lot, and I think my question is, do you think that that was done and there was an acknowledgement that police and fire should have a carve-out because this legislation we knew at the time that it was passed would fundamentally hurt workers, increase profits of private companies, and make it harder for people to bargain fair and safe contracts? Do you think that was an intentional thought process?
I do.
Representative Kolazar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for coming in today. We have seen very often that when nurses attempt to organize at a hospital, there's usually severe opposition from the hospital. Can you tell us why that is and kind of walk us through that a little bit?
There is. I mean, I think as with every corporation, hospitals are often run as a business versus a service industry. And in that, the profits are spent, or the finances, the monies are spent at the higher levels than that at the bedside. And they fear greatly a collective voice of those who are actually providing the care.
I'd just add that hospitals exist to provide nursing care. That's why people need to be in the hospital. We are the largest, usually, percentage of their payroll. So that's frightening for folks that are in administration when we organize.
Thank you very much. As a son of a nurse of 44 years, I appreciate all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Lapham, Ms. Lannon, and Mr. Robbie. Next up, Steve Claywell from the Michigan Building Trades Council. Is he in the room? Is Sean McBrady from Clean Water Action in the room? All right. I'm sorry, what? Is Tim Minotis in the room? Is Jonathan Byrd in the room? Mr. Byrd, come on up, testify, please. Mr. Byrd is from the laborers.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members of the Labor Committee. I am going to try to roll through. I actually am just going to, highlight some of the different testimony that's been given. So, Jonathan Byrd, I represent the Michigan Laborers District Council. We are 14,000 strong, united, and proud construction workers who literally build Michigan. I was here 10 years ago, and thousands and thousands of people were protesting on the Capitol lawn. I just want it noted, there's not a bunch of thousands of people protesting the repeal of right to work, right? It's pretty clear on that. I mean, you might have a couple suits from out of town that are coming in to talk about it, but, there's not a big opposition to it. But I want to take a moment and describe our model of unionism. So our union operates a healthcare, pension, training, and annuity funds, and really provide excellent benefits to our members. These pension funds count towards almost $2 billion of investments, and we've contributed over $1 billion to Michigan's economy. And I do want to highlight that our boards are managed by equal numbers of management and equal numbers of labor. So we have to build consensus. We hire experts. Those experts cost money, right? And we've not had, we're lucky. We've not had any of our members leave the union, but certainly they could institute their Beck rights should this bill be passed. But fundamentally, I want to address the freeloader concept, because it really is a freeloader concept. These benefits that we administer cost a lot of money, and the folks that gain that benefit shouldn't also or should be held to pay something. But fundamentally, this is philosophical. And I know I've heard a lot of discussion about studies and statistics and things along those lines, but for us, it's philosophical. We don't want the government telling two private parties what they can agree to in negotiations. That is what Right to Work does. That is what banning a union securitization clause does. And the union and the contractor can decide whether or not that clause even goes in there. But it's wrong for the government to ban specifically having that clause in a contract. Just on unions in general, we're American institutions. We say the pledge before every single meeting. We have in our constitutions rejections of communism. We, back during the Cold War, helped to lead the opposition to communism. And this is, Right to Work is, quite simply un-American. Okay, thank you.
Getting to the next witness because we're up against the clock.
You sure no one wants to ask me any questions?
No,
it is my birthday, Jim. I ought to be able to. Isn't that exciting?
Mr. Manotas.
All right.
So, Mr. Chair, my understanding there will be no further questions.
It's because all the amendments and substitutions presented by the Republicans are going to cause us to foreclose some of this. So I apologize, Mr. Coons, but this is outside my control.
I understand, but we could do this again next week.
We could, theoretically, but we may not have enough members on the House floor to accomplish what we intend to accomplish.
But we don't have to do this today, is all I'm saying.
I apologize, my microphone has been off. We do need to accomplish this today so we can get this accomplished by the spring break. Mr. Manotas, come on up.
I will try to be as brief as possible. Thank you, Chairman Hadsma and the rest of the committee for the opportunity to speak on the bills before you all this morning. My name is Tim Manotas. I am the Legislative and Political Director for the Sierra Club Michigan chapter. And we are here on behalf of our 150,000 members and supporters in support of the bills. As a union-represented environmental organization, the Sierra Club has a long history of solidarity with the labor and economic justice movements. For the Sierra Club, it is vital that we not only stand by our union members and partners, but at our organization, we aim to educate our members, supporters, and the public about the value of and connections between workers' rights and environmental protection. Union workers serve as the front lines of defense against harmful pollution spills, power outages, and other accidents that can devastate our communities. Workers with full collective bargaining rights are generally better trained to know about the health and safety risk of dangerous chemicals and have greater protections against hazardous practices in the workplace. Furthermore, when strong unions fight to ensure the health and safety of workers dealing with both the production, transport, and disposal of hazardous waste materials, we also ensure better health and safety for our communities. In 2022, it was the rail division of the Transport Workers United that sounded the alarm about the safety dangers of Norfolk Southern months before the disastrous derailment in East Palestine. So worker freedom equals better public health outcomes. Growing the labor movement and enhancing workers' rights and safety in the development of a clean energy economy is a top priority for our organization. Climate solutions are also our job solutions. It's not possible to tackle the climate crisis without creating good family-sustaining jobs where everyone can thrive and enjoy a good quality of life. We believe development should honor and support the right to organize, promote quality union jobs, and livable wages for both construction work and the permanent jobs that follow. We should be paying prevailing wages and utilizing and supporting apprenticeships. And I just want to close out here lastly. I want to speak from a personal perspective as a represented member by our Progressive Workers Union. For me personally, as a represented member, I have experienced firsthand the increase in quality of life my union has provided me. I have seen better wages, overall better benefits, and better workplace protections because of the fight that my union does on behalf of our union members on a day-to-day basis. It has allowed me to live not only a good quality of life, but a life with dignity and to be able to support myself and my family in ways that I wasn't able to do before. We see the exploitations of workers as just as harmful as the exploitation of the environment,
Thanks,
which is why we are
Mr.
happy to be
Minotis. I
speaking here.
apologize. We want to hear from
Yep.
Mr. McBrady.
Thank you.
Mr. McBrady is with Clean Water Action. You're welcome.
Again, I need to reiterate, I'm very much opposed to conversations like this without follow-up questions.
I understand.
Thank you,
Again,
Chair
if we
Hadsma.
had different circumstances and there weren't amendments and substitutes galore,
Our
we'd have more
circumstances are in our
opportunity.
control.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Hadsma, and to the rest of the committee for allowing me to testify today on such a critical matter to the people of Michigan. I'm Sean McBrady. I'm the Legislative and Policy Director for Clean Water Action, which represents over 130,000 Michigan residents who value protecting our Great Lakes, ensuring our water quality, and supporting the union workers that protect both. Our water is our most valuable natural resource here in Michigan, but it's our workers that make up Michigan's most valuable human resource. The men and women who put the world on wheels, who built the great arsenal of democracy which saved the world from fascism during World War II, and who today are advancing our clean energy economy, deserve to be treated with dignity and respect that a union provides. We owe it to Michigan and to our workers to protect and enhance workers' rights and safety. In a very real sense, America's working class values were born here in Michigan when Walter Reuther and his fellow workers sat down in Flint and said no to continued exploitation. On December 11th, 2012, the 1% had their day here in Lansing. I was here standing just outside the windows of the State House chamber, locked outside with tens of thousands of members of Michigan's labor movement. The workers of Michigan were locked out of the People's House, and a gerrymandered majority bankrolled by Betsy DeVos and other billionaires passed the so-called Right to Work bill. That bill did nothing to impart any rights to the working families of Michigan. In fact, it was specifically designed to limit the political power of working families and to increase the political power of corporations, including those same corporations that pollute our air and water and abuse workers and our shared environment with impunity. Working families understand that clean air and water are essential to living any kind of decent life. And as environmental leaders, we understand that well-trained workers standing together in solidarity are essential to protecting our shared environment. The wealthy corporations who exploit workers and oppose organized labor are often the same corporations that pollute our air and water, poisoning our communities while providing immense profits for billionaire CEOs. Tim spoke eloquently to the East Palestine train derailment, which could have been avoided if that corporation had decided to listen to union workers in advance. Another example, though, just like the worker suppression bill from 2012, the repeal of Michigan's prevailing wage was another blow to the political power and financial stability of working families. Repealing prevailing wage gave unaccountable corporations and CEOs unearned profits, money taken out of the pockets of the hardworking men and women who build and maintain this state. Repealing prevailing wage laws rewarded corporations who paid workers less than they deserved and shortchanged the excellent training and representation that unions provide. When skilled trades workers are replaced by workers who through no fault of their own are not properly trained, critical projects are often done incorrectly and consumers suffer as a result. In Michigan recently, we've seen this play out in the solar industry. Pink Energy, a company specializing in rooftop solar, recently went bankrupt after incorrectly installing home solar systems in Michigan. Mistakes were made during installation that never would have been made by fairly compensated and well-trained union electricians and laborers. Not only did this harm consumers who were left thousands of dollars in debt for systems that didn't function, this also harmed the reputation of solar energy, a reliable and affordable energy source that's absolutely critical to Michigan's fight against climate change. So thank you for allowing me to testify, and Clean Water Action's proud to stand with our brothers, sisters, and siblings in Michigan's labor movement today in supporting these bills.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mr. McGrady. So now we're going to vote on some amendments, substitutes, and ultimately the bills. So it's my appreciation that first we have a set of 3 amendments to House Bill 4004. These are presented by Representative Wozniak. Representative Wozniak, would you like to speak about each sequentially or in a package?
I'd rather do the package real
Thank you.
quick.
Go ahead.
These are just changes to the language in the bills themselves. One eliminates a paragraph after the word organization on page 3, line 20. On page 4, line 2, striking all of subsection 2 and renumbering the remaining subsections. And the third one is after section, the word section, page 15, line 9, and striking out the balance of the section and inserting 10, parent, 3, parent. That's the basis of all three amendments.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Wozniak. I take this as a motion. We need to take a roll call, clerk, in relation to acceptance or rejection of this set of proposed amendments on 4004. All right, we're going to do these separately, sequentially, 1, 2, and 3 of 4004. Would you take the roll, please?
On the motion to adopt the number 1 Wozniak amendment, Chair Hatzma?
No.
Representatives Metzer?
No.
Holzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Koontz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Clerk Sleeper, would you next go through Representative Wozniak's proposed Amendment 2 to 4004?
On the motion to adopt the second amendment, Chair Hatzma?
No.
Representatives Mentzer?
No.
Holzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Koontz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
And next, Clerk, would you please call attendance for Representative Wozniak's proposed Amendment 3 to 4004?
On the motion to adopt the Wozniak amendment, Chair Hatzma?
No.
Representatives Mentzer?
No.
Holzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Koontz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 pass. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Now, Representative Koontz has a motion to accept a substitute for House Bill 4004. Representative Koontz.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman. The issue that we've heard repeatedly today is the free rider issue. And I agree. I think we're more in line on this than people realize. You're right. If you're not part of AAA, you shouldn't get AAA towing. If you're not part of the union, you shouldn't be represented by the union. I don't think there's anyone here that disagrees with that. I have an amendment here that removes the free rider issue. And what this does is it removes the exclusive bargaining right of a specific union. It allows multiple unions or individuals to bargain, but only for themselves or only for their members. So, if this is truly a free rider issue, you're welcome. I've solved the problem.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you take roll call in relation to the proposed substitute?
On the motion to adopt the substitute, Chair Hatzma?
No.
Representatives Mentzer?
No.
Holzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Koontz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 pass. The substitute is not adopted.
Thank you. In relation to House Bill 4005, I understand we have a series of 5 amendments presented by Representative Wozniak. Representative Wozniak?
All at once?
Yes, please.
All right. First Amendment, add a provision requiring unions to inform their members of the rights under the Supreme Court Beck decision against Communication Workers of America and allow members to exercise this right at any time. So more freedom to look at the information, more transparency. And Amendment 2 would allow for local units to have control of the process in their local area. That's in reference to Rep. Mueller's comments about letting people make their own decisions in their own area. Amendment 3, this amendment would require recertification of a union annually to ensure that all members have the ability to vote and determine if they should continue to be represented by that union. And that, again, goes back to Representative Koontz's idea that you can bargain individually, but for no one else. Item 4, The amendment would require that each union provide its members with a clear and accurate report of how their dues are spent to include salaries and benefits paid to officers. More transparency. Similar to the previous, this is Amendment 5 now, similar to the previous amendment for H 4004, the amendment would allow a member to not pay dues or fees to their state or national union if the union is convicted of felony in relation to the union finances. I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Wozniak, and I apologize. Clerk pointed out that one of these 5 is proposed by Representative Kuntz. Representative Kuntz, would you like to speak on Second Amendment?
I do appreciate that. I think Representative Wozniak did a great job. So
thank you.
May the record show I didn't speak every time that I could have.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
On the motion to adopt the first Wozniak amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Next, we have a series of amendments.
We got to do the rest of them.
Oh, excuse me, I apologize. Clerk, call the roll on the Second Amendment, please.
On the motion to adopt the Kuntz amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, the Third Amendment, please.
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Fourth Amendment, please.
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. A roll call on the Fifth Amendment, please.
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wagella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passes. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Next, in relation to House Bill 4007, we have a series of 5 amendments. Representative Mueller, our call on you first because you haven't had as much opportunity. This is in context of Amendment 5, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll keep it simple because I stated it earlier. This amendment basically would allow for local schools, community colleges, universities to opt in on any state-funded projects they undertake, which gives, again, the communities the ability to hold their local officials accountable on the projects. Do you want me to speak to the substitute or just the amendment?
We'll get to the substitute
Okay.
in just a moment.
Right.
Just
Yep,
speak to the
that's-
amendment, and we'll get to substitute in just a moment.
Just local control issue for me, Chair.
Thank you. Representative Wozniak, I believe you are the moving party on 3 of these amendments. Is that accurate?
I'm double checking that. I believe that's correct.
Okay. Please go ahead.
All right. The first one is just amendments of the language in the bill itself. Page 2, line 14, after agent, insert, if the cost of the project is greater than or equal to the following. For a project that consists solely of new construction, $250,000. For a project that does not consist solely of a new construction, $75,000. We're on it. Yeah. All right. Next, we have page 2, line 14, after agent, if the cost of the project is equal or greater to $150,000. And next, amend page 4, following line 26, insert the following language. I think everybody can read the language, so I won't bother you with reading the whole thing. Total number of construction mechanics employed, total number of wages paid, total cost of materials, total number of safety incidents, the length of time to complete the state project, and whether the requirements of the act have increased costs, and if so, by how much.
And next, Representative Kuntz, you have Amendment 2.
Again, I believe Representative Wozniak covered Amendment 2.
Good teamwork, guys.
Yeah, there you go. Good teamwork.
Thank you. I'm trying to keep all this in order in my lap. So, Mr. Sleeper, please call the roll on the first proposed amendment.
On the motion to adopt the first Wozniak amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
The second proposed amendment, please,
On
Mr.
the
Clerk.
motion to adopt the Kuntz amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The third proposed amendment, please.
On the third Wozniak amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
I believe we're at the fourth amendment. Could you take roll call on that, please?
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. Could you take roll call on Representative Mueller's amendment number 5?
On the motion to adopt the amendment, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The amendment is not adopted.
Thank you. I believe we have a couple proposed substitutes in context of House Bill 4007. The first is by Representative Mueller. Representative Mueller, would you proceed?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. This is basically what, instead of what my last one that just got defeated would do, it would just fall in line with the federal Davis-Bacon wage scale for the implementation and compliance. So then it just codifies what we're doing federal, and we'll just put it into state law again, so it's a compromise and not overweighted to one side or the other. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And Representative Wozniak, might you proceed in relation to your motion in context of a substitute for 4007?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Similar to the H1, this would again to try to simplify the process for employers and the department by doing prevailing wage by prosperity region rather than by each local unit. It makes sense if we're going to put this law back in place after a citizen petition to get rid of it, and they're still against it too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Clerk, would you call roll on Representative Mueller's proposed substitute 4007?
On the motion to adopt the substitute, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Yes.
Kuntz?
Hey.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The substitute is not adopted.
Thank you, and would you please take attendance on Representative Wozniak's proposed substitute for 4007?
On the motion to adopt the substitute, Chair Hadsma?
No.
Representatives Menser?
No.
Colzar?
No.
O'Neill?
No.
Andrews?
No.
Churches?
No.
Wogella?
No.
Wozniak?
Yes.
Mueller?
Yes.
Kuntz?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 3 yeas, 7 nays, 0 passed. The substitute is not adopted.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to report House Bill 4004 with recommendation from the committee.
We recognize that motion. Any objections?
I do object.
So do I.
On what grounds?
We did not get a chance to question the testimony, and this has been rushed through.
Thank you.
The process has not been done.
Thank you.
More process than last time.
2 rounds? Is that what we're going to do now?
Call the roll. Mr. Clerk, please proceed.
On the motion to report Bill 4004, Chair Hadsma?
Yes.
Representatives Menser?
Yes.
Colzar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Wagella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
No.
Mueller?
Pass.
Koontz?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 2 nay, 1 pass. HB 4004 is reported with recommendation.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Representative O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make recommendations for 4005 without objections.
I recognize Representative O'Neill's motion. Any objections?
I object.
On what basis?
On the basis that the testimony was not allowed to be questioned, and this has been rushed through without due process.
Thank you, Representative Koontz. Mr. Clerk, would you take the roll?
On the motion to report, Chair Hatzma?
Yes.
Representatives Menser?
Yes.
Colzar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Wagella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
Pass.
Mueller?
Pass.
Koontz?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 1 nay, 2 pass. HB 4005 is reported with recommendation.
You're on.
I entertain a motion to report House Bill 4007. Do I say that? I'm sorry.
Yes. I understand. So Representative Churches has made a motion to report out House Bill 4007. Any objections? Absent objection, clerk, please take the roll.
On the motion to report, Chair Hatzma?
Yes.
Representatives Menser?
Yes.
Colzar?
Yes.
O'Neill?
Yes.
Andrews?
Yes.
Churches?
Yes.
Wagella?
Yes.
Wozniak?
No.
Mueller?
No.
Koontz?
No.
Mr. Chair, you have 7 yeas, 3 nays, 0 pass. HB 4007 is reported for recommendation.
I'd like to recognize there are no absent members, and I'd especially like to recognize Representative Mueller for coming in after a car crash on Monday, and Representative Koontz for coming in after being relatively ill even today. So thank you both for coming in. I also want to thank all in attendance and all in the rooms where you're watching on closed circuit television for taking the time to participate and share your thoughts with our committee. It's very valuable for us to receive this input. There be no further business. The House Committee on Labor is adjourned.